How to mix music, a guide for beginners. Mixing in the music industry used to be an exclusive practice that only audio engineers with a wealth of expensive studio gear could perform. Nowadays, digital audio workstations, DAWs, let artists and music lovers dive into the world of mixing themselves from the comfort of their homes. While it's easier than ever for anyone to mix music, mixing is an art form whose requirements and expensive tools can be easy to get lost in. We'll go over the foundational aspects of mixing, so you can set off in a good direction in the pursuit of mixing perfection. What is mixing? Mixing can be described as the practice of generating clean, clear, and defined audio from multi-track recordings. In other words, each musical element and instrument in a mix will have its level, volume, and position balanced out in relation to all the other sonic elements in a given track. A good mix will give a listener a clear idea of the space each musical aspect occupies. The sum of the parts creates a greater cohesive whole. A bad mix often includes washed-out sounds and a lack of clarity as multiple instruments and effects compete for the same space. Mixing represents one of the key stages in the process of music production. Typically, it occurs after composition, arranging, and sound design/production have taken place, but most creators use mixing tools throughout the production process. Now that we have a basic idea of what mixing involves, let's go over some of its core tools. 1. Toggle the volume faders and panning dials. While you may think that high-quality mixing relies primarily on expensive plugins, never underestimate the role of volume faders and panning dials. No matter how you dress up an instrument with fancy plugins, sometimes all you need for an instrument, drum kit, or vocal to pop is the right volume balance. Certain plugins can then be used to further polish and refine the sound. Similarly, one of the key challenges in mixing is to avoid multiple instruments competing for the same space, such as vocals and guitars. There are a variety of methods you can use individually or collectively to resolve this issue. However, sometimes the simplest road is the best one. Identify instruments whose fundamental frequencies are similar, and try separating them in the stereo field via. It's worth mentioning that some producers like to leave panning for the latter stages of the mixing process. This gives them the challenge of making each musical element sound defined while they all sound on the center. Whether you're suited to this technique or not, it can be invaluable in showing you which instruments clash, as some can become almost inaudible. 2. Use equalizers. Among the first plugins mixing engineers reach for equalizers, EQs. EQs are frequency editing tools that allow you to sculpt the frequency content of your instruments. This is important as most instruments emit unnecessary frequencies in their high and low ends. In addition, most instruments, particularly live-recorded ones, produce harsh ringing resonances. EQs are a great tool for surgically removing such unpleasant tones. 3. Apply compression. Compression plugins primarily serve to reduce the gain of a given audio source by lessening the difference between its loudest and quietest parts, dynamic contrast. In a sense, they tighten up the audio they work on, and some compressors add desirable sonic colors too. 4. Use reverb and other effects. Reverberation plugins, or reverb for short, provide the space in which your musical elements live and breathe in. Without reverb, audio sounds completely unnatural. For effects such as reverb, delay, and distortion, it's best to set up send/O tracks and send your chosen instruments to them. This allows you to mix in the effect to your liking, and place other effects like EQ to avoid accumulations of unwanted frequencies. Conversely, EQs and compressors often work best as insert plugins, inserted directly onto a given channel strip. 5. Use automation. While automation is most commonly used to dynamically change the volume levels of diverse instruments, you can also use it to boost the strength of your reverb or delay at the end of a phrase, or cut the highs or lows of a synth in an intro. 6. Make the final tweaks in your DAW. The aim of the mixing process is to produce a final error-free mixed-on that is ready for mastering. You'll want to fade all of your audio regions to avoid pops and clicks, and go through each track to make sure no unnecessary noises are present. Make full use of your DAW's arsenal of editing tools to clean up and fine-tune all that you can, such as pitch and timing aspects. Before sending your mixed-on to a mastering engineer, or starting the mastering process yourself, check and see whether you can hear each sonic element in your mix. Don't get bogged down in perfectionism, and when it's good enough, it's time for the final stage of mastering. Create a clear mixed-on. Mixing is a creative and technical process of balancing out all your musical elements into a defined, gripping, and cohesive whole. Use volume faders and panning dials to set the balance of levels between instruments and effects, as well as position them in the stereo field. Then, tighten up the frequency, content, and dynamic contrast of your audio with equalizers and compressors. Add effects like reverb and automation to add space, contrast, and vitality to your mix. Finish up with fine-tuning edits on your DAW, and your musical work is ready for the final stage of music production.